Okay, so here's the fun fact. Literally, I could take my kids to see a movie last week, and I could go back to movie theater with them and be like, we're going to see this. Like, Mom, we've seen it. I'm like, no, we haven't. And then literally halfway through, I'm like, oh, I think we saw this. I've always been that way. I've always been that way.
Let's stay with that. What up, dude? We are back with another episode of Speak for Yourself. And of course, we have Karen Elkins in the building.
What's happening?
And a very special guest, Dr. Chanel Hampton.
What up,
has
dog?
graced us with her presence. What up, doe?
What up,
so,
dog?
so the way we typically start off is we invite our guests to introduce themselves. Reason being, you speak at a lot of different places, and sometimes they might say something that you want them to say. Maybe they leave something out that the way that you would introduce yourself. So how would you like our audience to know you?
I appreciate that. I just had this conversation with someone. So Chanel Hampton, founder and CEO of Strategic Community Partners. But what I would say is how I want people to know me is I'm unapologetically for our people. I am unapologetically Black. I am an educator, a strategist, a mother. And I recently have been on sabbatical. So I am a Black woman who is leading, who also is taking time for herself in a way that I never have.
Nice. So we can start there, right?
Okay.
Like, how long have you known what sabbatical was? Like, I didn't know there was a thing. I've heard the word, but I didn't know that it was a thing because I'd never known anybody to go on sabbatical until I started, having white friends and ministry and
I mean, it's like the term consultant, right? Like I never knew what a consultant was. I'm like, what? Oh, I just know like I do what my people need, right? I probably became familiar with the term, I feel like I don't know if it was during my doctoral program or what, but familiar with it, I'm becoming familiar with it now.
So basically, you've known it for a long time. Like, Dwan just found out what it means.
I did
a week ago.
No,
Oh.
I've known.
No, I've been familiar.
I've known for 2 years. I can remember when I found out.
So I've been
what it
familiar
was.
with it, but I didn't know it, right? So I think it's also something of like my brother and I talk about like, you in theory know what investing is, right? Or stocks, investments, retirement plans, but we didn't actively learn those things or practice those things. Right. So I'm becoming familiar. Knew what it was, but it was like that thing you couldn't touch, right? The thing that just wasn't the reality at the time. So now my team
is this
is
your
making me
first one?
comfortable.
The first time?
Yes, absolutely. So my team kicked me offline for 2 weeks.
Nice.
And I'll be taking 4 months off.
So your sabbatical was 4 months?
Yep, so my full sabbatical is going to be 4 months. My
Okay.
team immediately kicked me offline for 2 weeks, like, sis, you need to sit still. Like, you've held us down, you got to go. So what I realized during that time was I have been, I don't know if you know this, but I've lived on my own since I was 13, worked 68 hours a week since I was 13 on top of school. So
I didn't know all
you
that.
didn't know that?
No.
Okay, so I have been working 60 to 80 hours a week for over 25 years, and I've never taken off 2 weeks. And I didn't realize that until last week, 2 weeks
crazy.
ago, when I was like, oh, I have not sat still. Like, even if I was off, I'm still checking email, I'm still working, I'm still taking some calls here and there.
That
At
is
best, I've
crazy.
taken a week off. Yeah.
I mean,
It hasn't
like,
been-
I thought you worked a lot harder than that. You're such a slacker.
You know what? Look, but the irony is it's actually the least I've ever worked.
Wow.
Are you
Right?
finding it difficult?
Like, since you were
to get the
13, 60, I thought I was doing something with like a paper route and going to pass out the handbills, but like, that is serious.
It's life, yeah.
And one, I know that there's a whole series of stories tied into that, right? Because, we don't want, I'm sure that your children, you've probably done some things to make sure that they didn't have to work like that
Absolutely.
at such a young age. Not that you want to, steer them away from
I want them to
hard
have
work.
a firm foundation. I want them, like, if I dropped off face of the planet, they'll be good.
Yeah.
But I definitely didn't want them to have to go through a lot of what I went through and have the same struggles. But, like, they know struggle, and if struggle hits you, you need to be able to make it through.
Appreciate that.
So going back into the sabbatical, because I know there's different sabbaticals for different reasons, right? And so this particular sabbatical, what is the purpose of the sabbatical for the 4 months? What are you required to do, or what not required to do? What are you supposed to be doing?
So I'm really good. Like, I have a type A personality, and I'm working on unlearning some of that. So there's no plan.
Okay.
There's no goal. There's no nothing.
I love that.
It's like, go the hell offline
Right.
and be. So, you know, I feel like going out of the country, I'm gonna go out the country.
Okay.
If I feel like reading, I'm gonna read. If I feel like eating and sleeping and rotating, that's what I'm gonna do.
Nice.
So no plans, no nothing.
That
I
is
think
good.
another one of our guests, Yodit, actually mentioned
Yep.
something similar.
She's on sabbatical now, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
So is this part of the same program that she's part of?
No, so
okay.
there is, I know the McGregor Fund does a sabbatical. This is just me going offline.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you know, within SCP, we operate a little differently. So the McGregor Fund offers sabbaticals for nonprofit leaders. So yes, SCP has a nonprofit, but we actually have like a real estate wing, a for-profit wing that we use our revenue that leads our initiatives and funds our initiatives and funds our real estate. And so even though we have a nonprofit and everything we do is equity-oriented, community-oriented, people-oriented, I recognize I'm in a slightly different lane. And so I operate in a different way. And I want to make sure that people who actually need those funds and need that opportunity in that way can have it. And then we made the investment as an organization, honestly.
Nice.
So yeah, this is just self-imposed, SCP imposed. Let's go offline.
And why is it, so why, when you were analyzing how long you've been working, your career, how much you've put into the organization itself, why was it important for you to take this sabbatical right now?
So I think the last, I would say 5 years, maybe 6 years, I've really been intentionally focusing on Chanel and like Chanel's healing. So, you know, I mentioned lived on my own since I was 13, worked 60 hours a week. I have 7 kiddos I've raised. I've launched several companies. Most people know me like in Detroit through SCP, but was leading a national team for years before I launched SCP, began my career as a teacher. Like everything I've done, it's for people, right? And I'm passionate about everything that I do, but I had never actually stopped and been like, what about you? What do you want? And so that's looked different year over year, right? So started taking some time, really carving out vacations, and then realized I need to just completely pause. I also think the last few years has been really trying for everyone, right? Life has been lifing. I feel like every good person I know has been getting hit left and right. And, you know, we're an organization I don't take for granted that, you know, there were hundreds of thousands of businesses that closed during COVID. 80% of them were Black owned. We survived. Not only did we survive, but I gave all of my people raises. We increased our revenue. We scaled our initiatives. And it was just like thing after thing after thing. And so I had a conversation with my team last week and was like, yo, like the grace and support that everybody talks about, they receive it at SCP. Like I'm praying that this will be extended because your girl has to tap out, right? And I've never said that. I've literally never one time in my life said I have to tap out. And so I had to work through that, right? And I was kind of nervous, like, how's my team going to take it? And they were like, we are so proud of you. And it's just, I need to take time, right? Yeah. So if I want to, I'm trying, like my grandparents lived to be like 100. I'm trying to be 100, right? I'm trying to like be healthy. I'm trying to be in the game. Like this is just the beginning, right? I need to be healthy. I need to be whole. I need to be happy. And some of that just requires I got to shut off from some things. So I don't know what that looks like completely in full transparency.
You've used a few terms. I've heard you say healing. I've heard you say pray. And something else, and I forget the other term, right? So I was looking at a very common passage of scripture in 2 Chronicles this morning at the prayer meditation, and I was just thinking about the charge that God was giving Solomon and said, look, like, you know, if my people that were called by my name would humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, right, then I would hear them from on high and heal their land, heal the land. And I was just thinking about that because when we are in this space and we do this type of work, oftentimes, like, humility is not encouraged. We preach it and we talk about it, right? But I've seen you get awards. I've gotten more awards than I've, you know, got when I was playing football and baseball and other stuff in little leagues recently, right? So it seems like we do a fair amount of like exalting, which is opposite of being humble.
Yeah.
And I'm just struggling with the balance of all of that right now because I feel like God is saying one thing, Dwan, and then the world is saying something else. And I don't want to be rude, you know what I mean, to people that are saying, hey, we see the work that you're doing. But as I hear you say those terms on today in particular, that's kind of what comes to mind. But I also, before we got started, and I did know this about you just from our conversations, that you are a person of faith. And I'd imagine, you know, that has been kind of like an anchor in you being a mother, you know, surviving on your own for so long, but also, you know, doing the work that you do at ACP, which is not like a religious organization, but, you know, I'd imagine that stuff is inspired from that. So I just want to hear your thoughts on what does healing need to look like for you? How does somebody like you stay humble, right? It's like you've done a lot of things that a lot of people have benefited from, you know what I mean? If we just talked about your children, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
I have like 5 different thoughts right now. So
let's go ahead. You saw I just processed with
I'm
y'all.
like, because I have thoughts. So one, I will say this, and if you actually go on our website, it is actually even on there, and people were like, oh, like people have commented on this. I am very clear. Everything that I do actually comes from a place of godly love. Everything, anything that you see, me sitting here, me talking to y'all, the work that our team does, my children, it's all my purpose, what God has called me to do, and everything really does come from a place of godly love. So SCP, yes, it's not a religious organization, but like literally on our website, it's like, this is an answer to my grandparents' prayers, right? So I will say that. What I will also say is I'm going to go back. So you were like, I'm struggling. I don't want to come off as rude, but I'm struggling with what God is calling me to do or what God is saying, what people are telling me. And my question is, why are you struggling?
Yeah, I think it's the balance of saying, you know what, we appreciate this award. Plus we have the pressure of growing brand awareness for the organization because, you know, we're confident that the work that we do is necessary and we, you know, need people to know what we're doing.
Right.
So when, you know, people are sharing their platform and they're like, but, you know, we want to give you this award and it's going to put you in front of a few hundred people. I'm like, man, I don't want the award, but we need to be in front of these few hundred people.
Right.
So that's
the
I don't
thing,
think
and
processing that, you know what I mean?
Lacking in humility. I don't think that is. I think that, so people who are close to me know this. I'm like a put my head down and work type person. I'm an introvert. Like I am an introvert. People who know me, I'm like, oh, I'll talk, loving, but I'm an introvert.
Definitely have extrovert tendencies.
I'm an introvert.
You know what I mean?
So when people are like, oh, I want to go out to this event, I'm like, I call it a people threshold.
Okay.
Like I'm really an introvert.
But you know what? I do see you like,
I'm
when
real
you're
low
out,
key.
You still kick it with a couple people.
I've always been low key, right? So this is what I will
Interesting.
say. I'm an introvert. I believe real G's move in silence.
Okay.
And I had a boss back in the day who told me in 15 years she had not applied to a single job that she had. And she was like, your work speaks for itself. So I'm also a firm believer that God will put in your life who needs to put in your life.
That's
like
real.
the first 5 years of SCP, we purposely took no dollars, no investments, no loans, no nothing. I was like, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to work. The right opportunities are going to line up. We're going to build our revenue. We're going to do what we're saying. Everybody, you know, what we all want to do. And then I'm going to have funders coming to me, begging me to take their money. And they're not going to tell me what to do with it. Because I'll be damned if somebody tells me what to do in my own neighborhood. And that's what happened, right? We didn't take a dime in the first 5 years. We bought our first building, renovated that building, offered that building at no cost to folks. We didn't, I'm not that dynamic, right? That unhealthy dynamic. No, that's not. And I'm furthermore not going to have, that's why we didn't launch as a nonprofit. I'm never going to have a board trying to tell me, I'm not going to a board and asking for permission to pay my people more, to give a scholarship to the kid down the street because he needs to get a hold off his account to get his degree. I'm not doing that. And my people work hard. So yeah, we're going to go out. They're going to have some beverages. We're going to have spa days. Because guess what? They work way harder than the white men in corporate. And they do it every day, right? And so I think that I say all that to say, whatever God is telling you and whatever's in your gut, if you stick to it, a way will be made.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a balance, right? So my team pushes me every day, like, Chanel, you know, you got to, because I'm very low key. Most people don't know, we quietly granted out over $1 million in less than a year. A bunch of the nonprofits where we are sitting, we put tenants back on this campus. Like, there's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah,
and so
no doubt.
my thing is, I don't talk about that, right? Now, what's interesting is people will craft their own narrative, right? And so I think my team and people around me are pushing me to say, Chanel, you have to get more out in the forefront, right? So like I've talked, like, especially before COVID, right? So it's like this weird gap of COVID. Before COVID, yeah, like I ran a national team. I was working with folks. I'm talking to tens of thousands of people. And then COVID hit and I was like, ooh, my introvert self just got recharged. So I'm trying to actually find that balance now. And, you know, we're bringing on 6 new full-time people. So my head's just, I'm down working, right? I think there's a balance. And what I will say is this: you have to stay true to yourself. You can still be humble and still speak truth. If y'all are out here funding, I mean, we did like a joint grant together, like in the peak of COVID, right? You can still talk about what you're doing for people, right? But there's a spirit, and I believe that motivation, people's motivations and intentions speak through. So you can talk about the great work that y'all are doing. I would guess that you have people in your corner who you don't realize you have in your corner who would come to the table and cover the funding gaps for those people that probably aren't equitable funders.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we haven't suffered or struggled to raise money as an organization. But I think
even funding or anything, right?
Yeah.
You got to stick to who you are.
Yeah, but we have some goals in front of us that, like, I know are real goals.
Yep.
But I also know that we won't get there without the Lord, right? So
the Lord and everybody has a role to play.
Oh yeah,
right. And
yeah.
so it's
Everybody,
like, how do you navigate that system?
But the roles, like, it's already obvious to me, and obvious, even more obvious to the team, that us doing our jobs to the best of our abilities won't get us where we're trying to go.
Yep.
And I'm comfortable and okay with that. I prefer it that way, so that the credit goes in the right place at the end of the day when we're like, oh, how did we end up making that happen? Even though we worked our best, worked as hard as we could to make it happen, right? So I appreciate you.
Look, because, you know, I'm like, we're going to keep talking about this.
Yeah.
So you asked me another question, and it was, what does healing look like?
What does healing look like? I definitely want to hear that.
Partially, so I'm figuring that out.
All right.
So I think that it's
Make
evolved.
Sure we hear you.
I think we good. Okay. I think it's evolved over the years. So at first that looked like I started going to therapy like 5-6 years ago, right? I started taking vacations. So when I launched SCP, I'd been working 80 to 100 hours a week leading a national team before I launched SCP. So I'm going to take a month off. I announced that I was opening up, you know, what
I feel like my blood pressure go high just hearing her talk about that. Like, my blood pressure just shot up.
Look, so, but I started taking vacations when I launched my own company. And I worked 80 to 100 hours a week for years, like 7 years. Took off a month. I made the announcement. I had 3 contracts before that month was out. And so, yes, the grind is real, but I also was like, okay, I need to take time. So I implemented that not only for me, but for our entire team. So every quarter we shut down for a week. At the end of the year, we shut down for almost a month, right? We have a no days model, all these pieces. What I realized is I was giving other people what I also needed. And so first it was like therapy. Then it was like taking some vacation. Then it was peeling back some layers of like, yo, I've given to everyone and everything. What about me? And so when COVID hit, honestly, I was working the least I'd ever worked. It was still at least like 60 hours a week, but when you're working 80 to 100 hours a week, it's like I was coasting, I felt like. COVID hit, and I realized, damn, you still run around like a chicken with your head cut off. Like, I don't think I could have made it another year, to be very honest with you. And so when COVID hit, I had this conversation with myself, and I was like, I want to be happy, healthy, and whole. What will it take? If I gave myself 5% of what I give of everyone else, what would that look like? So at first, I just started sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. I started sleeping. I started cooking at home again. I realized I hadn't cooked at home for real consistently like 10 years. Literally. I was just go all day, drink coffee, eat a meal at night while I'm sitting at 1 o'clock in the morning, typing, doing some work, checking emails. Like, y'all know how it goes. And then I made the decision that I wasn't going to keep stressing about certain things. I needed to evaluate certain relationships. And so I started, what I say to like my friends and to like my team is like, what advice would you give your best friend? What advice would you give your child? And I started actually taking more of my own advice. And so it was, I think there's the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and so what I also did was, like, I have all these plans for everything. What's my plan for me? And so I actually started writing down, like, what does my life look like? Like, what does this look like? What does this mean? And so there are all those components. Physically, I mean, you know, like, literally, people don't recognize me anymore. Like, during COVID in 7 months, I naturally lost 130 pounds.
Wow.
Literally. I slept the first 40 pounds. All I did was sleep and cook at home. That's it. I'm talking about like biscuits and gravy from scratch, baking, like not like, oh, let me eat salads.
Right.
I stopped engaging in toxic like engagements and relationships, and we sunset a couple partners. Like I was like, I'm done. I'm letting toxic stuff go. Next 40 pounds, started working out the gym. Last 50 pounds, got a trainer. And so I think my healing looks like listening to myself. And what I'm learning is we know what we need, we ignore it.
Yeah.
Like if I really, if I'm honest with myself, I know what I need. I know what I need moving forward. Some of those things I'm giving myself, and some of those things I'm not giving myself yet. And to be frank, that's why my team kicked me offline. Because they're like, you're not going to give yourself this.
That is very simple and profound, right? Like we know what we need.
Yeah.
We ignore it.
Yeah. And it's like I need to listen to myself more. And sometimes that's popular, and sometimes it's not.
Right. Right. Sometimes you don't want to hear what yourself is saying.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's interesting, I think, to see how people receive that. Like, I'll be honest, the thing that I think we don't talk about is as you evolve and grow as a human, as you start to take better care of yourself, as you grow your impact, relationships shift, right? And so it's been interesting even for me to see as I say yes to Chanel and that made me no to something or somebody. It's very interesting. Like, you start to see, like, oh, who's really riding with me? So when you're like, yeah, I always see with a couple people, absolutely. And those couple people trimmed down even more in the last few years, right? And so that's we don't talk about that, right? Yeah. But it's like, it's tough, but it's like the decisions that we have to make. Like, I have to choose me.
Love it.
I love it. I think, you want to jump in with a question? I got several more. So you know what? We need the people to know what strategic community partners is. Right, even though I feel like that's asking you to like come off your sabbatical for a few minutes. I feel dirty like asking you to tell the people what strategic community partners is. But you know, if you could break sabbatical for a couple minutes.
Because I got our next one of our added segments that she said, "Real G's move in silence." That's going to be one of our Real G's
move. Yeah, got you.
Move in silence. But we don't need you to move in silence. We need you to tell us.
I will say.
SCP.
So, SCP, Strategic Community Partners, we are a capacity building firm. I launched the firm actually in 2 weeks, 8 years ago. So, in a nutshell, you know this. Everything we do is about creating and furthering equity for our people specifically. I'm very clear. I'm very unapologetic.
When you say our people, you mean
black people. Black people. You look across time, space, generations, geography. Black people have always been oppressed and systemically beaten down, and we still rise somehow, right? So, yes, I care about all kids. Yes, I care about all people. But what I'm clear about is black folks, ain't nobody else going to do it for us but us. And so what that looks like on a day-to-day is, you know, everything from strategic planning to community engagements to community convenings. And then I mentioned earlier, we also have equity initiatives. So we take our revenue and we launch and we have launched fellowships that support specifically black leaders and black professionals in growing and elevating to the next level of their impact. We have our Community Impact Incubator where we support black-led nonprofits and help them scale. We have a national incubator as well. We have communities of practice across the country. And then we also offer fiduciary services. We're a grant maker. So right now we have a cohort of 20 grassroots orgs across the city, granted out $500,000. And the way that I describe it is like, think of the mom and pop shop, like the block club, the auntie, the organization down the street that like held it down for y'all when you were kids, right? Those are those 20 organizations. Nice. And so we also have a community center right down the street. So, I mean, y'all know, right? So nonprofit CBOs can use the space. You've allowed
BLD to use your facility a number of times for our quarterly or annual meetings.
So, in a nutshell, I would say everything we do is about our people, right? What do we deserve, desire, and need? And how that has shaped out over the years is listening to our people, right? So I was a teacher, I was an administrator, I am the kids that we serve, right? So I think some of that is like taking what I did for 15 years before, but then as we continue to grow, you know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we started working on what became our Kanata Fellowship, our Community Impact Incubator, the Create Accelerator. I constantly was seeing, and y'all see this too, like fiduciary, like I didn't know what a fiduciary was. Like, so we talk about sabbatical, I didn't know what the hell a fiduciary was. Right. And then I was like, you mean to tell me white people trust white people to cut checks, and then you take a cut of my money and you know I'm doing the work? That's just like legal financial slavery yet again. So wasn't surprising, but it's the system, right? So we said, we're going to charge 1 to 5%. You're going to get access to TA at no cost as a result. We're going to take you on an annual wellness retreat. And frankly, during the pilot, we've served over 40 organizations as a fiduciary. Nice. We haven't charged a dime, to be very honest with you. And so
amazing.
It's this notion of like, it blows my mind that there are people making money off of like the orgs that we serve as a fiduciary. Like, y'all know, like we know them, right? And I'm like, they're coming out their own pocket for this stuff. How are you going to take, you have $100,000, you mean you keep 20 grand because a white person trusted you to write a check? And so I would say everything that we do, it's like there is a need in our community, right? People are coming to us. They're asking us like, hey, we know y'all convene people. We know you execute on this. We know you can do this. And so it's filling those gaps in many ways. And then frankly, just giving our people what they deserve.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Is that primarily working with other nonprofit organizations, social impact organizations? Or is it also social impact organizations, the community, for-profit?
That's a great question. Okay. So 2 things I would say. So 1, externally, everyone sees SCP, right? We have the for-profit wing, which is what the first 5 years, we brought revenue in through like strategic planning, engagements, convening, et cetera. We then launched our nonprofit wing, which is all of our equity initiatives. So our fellowships, our incubators, our fiduciary services, we're a grant maker, and then we also use the revenue to purchase real estate, right? Okay. So this neighborhood, this is my uncle, he's like my pops, this is his childhood neighborhood. We were there, like I grew up hearing about the heyday of this neighborhood, like black doctors, lawyers, teachers. And so that's why we bought property in this neighborhood, right? Like I don't want to be downtown, I want to be here in the neighborhood. That's where we do work. And then when we partner, so our partnerships look very different. So we work with everyone from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through Detroit Parent Network. Right. And so what we actually do is all of our equity initiatives are for Black leaders and Black-led nonprofits. Okay. And then on the for-profit side, we may be engaging with someone to actually help lead them through some equity work, to do some strategic planning. And so that's like the Gates Foundation. Right. Or we had the Gates Foundation come to us like, yo, we've been hearing about like all these communities of practice you've been doing. How are you doing this? And so we're actually like working with them, and we're able to then launch a national cohort, offer funding through it. And so I say it's like the spectrum of partners, but at the end of the day, we have fellowships where we've engaged teachers, right? We just had a block party. It's like, I grew up like in the city, but my grandparents also lived in the country. And so as a kid, I ran around barefoot out in the country, right? So every summer we throw block parties, and you just see babies running around the hood barefoot, right? And so there are different components that I would say it's for the babies, it's for the elders. Like all the little community elders come out and kick in and like move their chairs with the sun to be in the shade, right? And then we're working with the Detroit Parent Networks, the Skillman Foundations, the Gates Foundations, nonprofits that are in here even, right? So it's cross-sector, I would say. And what we were talking about earlier, like everyone has a role, right? Now my non-negotiable is you have to love Black people. Right. You got to be doing right. Our core values are passion, excellence, integrity, and equity. You got that? We can talk, right? You have passion, excellence, equity. You don't have integrity. We're not going to talk. So when you were talking like who's an equitable funder, right? So we say no to a lot of people. We say no to a lot of folks who look like they're doing really good community work online.
Yeah.
But are you?
Yeah. Right. That's good. I think so. So tying some of this into what you said earlier, when you said nobody's going to do this but us, right? Mm-hmm. So to someone that doesn't know any better, they might think that means there's not a space for them to play.
Yeah.
And what we like to say, and if you look at the way we're structured as an organization, we welcome allies to support the work that we're doing. Yep. We just don't invite them to lead it.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit about that and the nuance of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, will you accept partners from other communities outside of the Black community?
Yeah. Right. I mean, look, I just mentioned Bill and Melinda Gates, right?
Of course.
Like, okay, maybe don't put that out
right.
there.
I thought
don't put that comment out there. Don't put that part.
I thought it was a black. I thought it was a black and white Bill and Melinda Gates.
Look, I'm like, don't put that part out there. So, I mean, it's actually very similar to what you're saying, right? So the way that I would, yes, everyone has a place at the table if you embody these core values, right? Yeah. Like if you are racist or what, like you probably don't have a seat at the table, right? But everyone has a role to play. And I think what it is about is recognizing your role and your lane. And so I can very tangibly say this, SCP, we have about 15 full-time employees, about 30 to 40 consultants at any given time. My full-time team, one person is not Black. Our leadership team will always be Black. This organization will always be led by someone Black. And our consultants, we have maybe 5 out of the 40 that aren't Black, right? And so I think there are 2 points there. One, this notion that Black people can't lead and we can't find talent is bullshit.
Right.
It's flat out bullshit.
Yes.
And even as, like, I've had team members join the team, most of them, they're brilliant. Everyone is brilliant. Most of them will be like, I was never given this leadership opportunity somewhere else.
Right.
But they were the ones really doing all the work.
Right. Of
So
course.
now you have the title and the compensation to match the work you've been doing
I love
for
it.
anywhere from like 5 to 20
I love
years,
it.
right?
Yeah.
But what my entire team is clear on, and even our non-Black colleagues are clear on, this will always be a majority Black organization. It will always be Black-led. And I love and I appreciate that folks who we work with, whether it's a funder, a partner, a team member, if they aren't Black, and I don't mean this in a bad way, they know their place. Right. And I will say this, like, I know my place in certain situations. I'll tell my team, tell me to shut up. Tell me what to do. Right.
Yeah.
We all need to know our place in given situations.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's a time and a place for everything. And there's a seat for everyone to have.
Yeah. It's weird that would sound off-putting to people, though, right? Because if you think about it, you'd be hard-pressed to go into another community, be it race, gender, whatever, and find a bunch of people that don't represent that community running the show. But in our community, you see so much of that.
Absolutely.
You see so much, so many things ran by people that aren't from the community.
It's
that we're accustomed to it.
Yeah, but and that's, I think, like, it's off-putting because it's disrupting a system
Yes.
that has been in place that serves particular people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the scary part that we don't talk about, and this may be a different conversation, is it's internalized oppression as well. So oftentimes when you look at these systems, it's like we do this now to one another.
Oh, for
so
sure.
I ain't got to worry about
For sure.
the non-Black person. It's like this happening up in this room.
Yeah.
What's going on?
And it should be no surprise, right?
Yeah.
We all get the same messaging. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not like white people are getting one message about Black people and we're getting a different one. We all getting the same message about Black folk.
But I think that where the buck comes to stop. What's that saying?
Where the rubber meets the road.
Maybe that, sure.
buck
Where the
stops
rubber meets the road.
Whatever one you
or the
wanna
buck
say.
stop.
Right.
Look,
You're the doctor here.
Right,
Look, this is my
Whatever
thing.
you say, we rolling with it.
There are these systems at play, and why I say nobody else is going to do it is we actually have the power to shift this narrative and to shift the reality.
For sure.
But we need to realize we have that power, and we have to stop doing
That's
this
the
shit.
thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because my thing is we doing it to one another.
I get frustrated when I hear people say speaking truth to power. Like, just that and alone is feeding yourself a message that's perpetuating that narrative, right?
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
If I feel like I would like for us to, when we say we're speaking truth to power, we should be looking in the mirror.
Yep.
You feel me? We always think that when we speak in truth to power, it's some like white person with a high level of influence. But what the good doctor is saying is we don't even know the power that we possess.
No.
Right? So when we speak in truth to power, we should be saying, Ken, you are more than able to do this. Right? Like, and whoever comes along to help that's not from your community, they have to get behind your leadership.
Right.
You are the expert here.
Right.
Remove all the Kens from this, and it will forever be broken.
Yeah. And I think it's the white paradigms or archetype of truth, but I think it's also this piece of, honestly, I think when I hear people say truth to power, it's oftentimes knocking our own people down. Right.
Yeah.
So to your point,
That's what I'm saying.
I'm uplifting this Black brother, this king, right? And I think if we actually came together, right? If we actually supported one another, you have to look at, like, so I'm like a history nerd, and particularly a Black history nerd. You look across time, geography, space, I don't care where you look, they've tried to stop us. Every single time we somehow make it.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like we are the only ones holding ourselves back. Yes, there's a system at place. Yes, there's a racial wealth gap. Yes, all these things are true. And guess what? We got money.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? We have resources. We have brain power. Like, we've survived off of far less. And then I think about my grandparents, and, they were born in the 19-teens. If they could do what they did, there's no reason
That's it.
that in Detroit, in 2023, as Black people, we cannot do what we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that's what I mean. And that's what I think you mean.
Yeah.
Speaking truth to power. I'd rather, let's say, we speaking truth to regular folk. You know what I'm saying? Than speaking truth to power. You know what I mean? Because they're regular at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It's like they may have access to, or, you know, have done something or accomplished something or inherited a seat, you know, that somebody else.
I've always misunderstood that statement, though. So you're saying that statement means you're telling who's in power the truth. I always interpret that statement as I'm telling the truth so that it can come into power.
I think it's a both and. I actually think it's a both and. But
when most people hear most people say it, it's the other one, right? It's like it's the I'm speaking truth up here. You know what I mean? To power, to someone is powerful, right? And I think that the more we say that this person, these people are powerful, we're continuing to communicate to ourselves that they're more powerful than I am, than we are, right?
And I do think,
and I just don't believe that's the truth.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think it's a both and, right? I think that it's quite literally, and again, I'm a history nurse, so you look at like the movement and where people started saying these things, right? And I think it's a both and, right?
So explain the other side.
I mean, I also think about like black is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You could look at that as a two-way street. We were saying that two ways. One, black is beautiful. I'm saying that so other people who aren't black can understand black is beautiful. But we were also saying that to ourselves.
Again.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, let me look in the mirror
and
like,
say
black
that.
is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
But it's a two-way street,
So
right?
both,
That's true.
And that
Yeah,
that was a
for
great
sure.
That's why you're the doctor. You just made a great example
That's
to
it.
fit both narratives.
Yeah, and
there.
because I do think both are necessary.
Yeah.
So when you're, okay, let's loop back full circle. Non-black people that have a seat at the table, it's a both and, right?
Yeah.
So someone will be like, oh, you're working with this funder or this. Absolutely. I have non-negotiables, but guess what? Yeah, I'm going to take that money so I can get this to my people, right?
right.
Yeah.
And it's like all money's not good money, right? But I think it's both and. So it's, we have to speak to ourselves, and we still do have to engage, because what I do believe is if we harnessed our collective power and like if we could even just wrap our minds around 1% of our power and potential, everybody else will fall in line.
Yeah.
In fact, I've seen it happen.
Us as a whole, because obviously there's some that do that, but us as a whole community wrap our arms around that. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue to work with the folks that do, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to work with the folks that got their sleeves rolled up.
Yep.
And they're not always black. You know what I mean? I work with whoever had their sleeves rolled up,
Yep.
right? But we always have to have accountability. So this has been great. And we're not going to hold you forever. We're going to respect your team. I don't want to bump into any of your team members that
Like,
sent
what
you on a
you do?
sabbatical.
Right.
And then I'm
talking about
I'm sitting there trying to speak truth to power, like, yo, hold up. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't swing on me.
Are you watching any movies on your sabbatical?
You know what? Because you're not going to remember that.
Exactly.
Look, you're not going to remember them. You know, it's so funny. Y'all not going to come for me. I'm catching up on Godfather in Harlem right now. Because I don't watch a lot of TV. So actually on sabbatical, stop it, Forrest Whitaker. Lord, thank you, Jesus. I remember. Look, I can't stand you. No, because I don't watch TV. We grew up not watching, so I don't watch TV for real. So yeah, like over sabbatical, I've been like catching up on a lot of things. And it made me think about, I'm like right now on the piece around him and Malcolm and some of the conversations that they had. And yeah, this conversation is making me think of that. And then, you know, one of my mentors is his oldest daughter. And so I've really been reflecting lately, like watching that and then thinking about conversations we've had and then thinking about this conversation and just where I'm at. I'm like, this is a multi-generational, it's the good fight.
No doubt.
It's the good fight.
No doubt. It's what I'm called to at this point in time.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, I know after this, I'm going on sabbatical, bro.
See what you got
Look,
started?
right, he's like, look what you
See what you
did.
got started?
So that you know, I ain't going to take 4 months.
I mean, y'all, but
Bro,
y'all had a collective shutdown,
Look,
right?
he
Y'all
has not been working 68 hours
No way.
since he was 13,
No way.
right? He hasn't been working 68 hours.
I had a whole lawnmower in my hand. What are you talking about?
Maybe all together, you know what I mean? He don't work 68 hours
This dude don't know
since
me.
he was
We gonna start
13.
I've been doing
somewhere,
68
okay?
hours
Look.
since I was 13.
Since he was,
Since I was
from the
13.
time he was 13 to now, he
You know,
might have worked 68
he
hours.
might have worked
He might
68
have
hours.
worked 68
I'm
hours.
taking a sabbatical in a couple months, 2 months. You know
I'm
what
looking
I
at
mean?
him while you talking to him like,
Boom, see? What's up? You gonna be my?
I'm looking at this brother too. Like, when is he?
He good. He don't even know what's about it.
He
good.
You see all these gray hairs? I thought Ken was using just for men. That's all natural. So that tell you who doing the worrying.
No.
You know what I mean? He still got a full black hair in his beard.
That's real nice. That's nice. That was sarcasm because I also am team white.
Right.
Team white,
you know what I'm saying?
I just don't get as stressed.
Whatever.
You know what I mean?
Somebody need a sabbatical.
I've lived a whole life for stress early. I'm good. But sabbatical next month.
You just had one. You just had a whole week off in July.
I'm glad y'all did a collective shutdown.
Yeah, we had a shutdown. So
you got 4 months. You gonna applaud our
the
little
reason.
I'm saying
the reason for
that is great.
Please.
You know what?
Y'all got hope.
Terrible.
Y'all got hope.
Both ends.
Both ends.
Both ends.
You say you SCP been around for how long?
8 years.
See me in 4 years, bro.
I'm speaking truth to power.
See you.
I'm taking 2 weeks. I'm taking 2 months off.
That was the most direct.
In both ways.
See me in 4 years. See me 4 years.
He grabbed it.
We used to we got what you have. So in shutdown. So shutdown came from last year. You know, after May and June, those are really, really busy times for us as an organization, you know. And there was some time in June where it was like assignments were coming in late.
Yeah.
And some of them was half-assed, you know what I mean?
Like people tired.
Yeah. And I was aggravated. And I was like, wait, they tired. But we don't even make room for people to say I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because everybody love what they do. And we have big,
and
high
that's
expectations.
Too, right?
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have a background at working in the automotive industry here, and I used to work for one of the big three, and we used to have a 2-week shutdown every year. And I was like, we need a shutdown, right? And talked to Ken, and I felt bad because we didn't give the team lead time. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where July was coming right up. We're going to do it the first week in July. Yeah, I'm like, we shutting down for a week. Everybody going to do whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? And now you come in here and he won't like that. But I'll say this, you know.
I don't know how to spell it.
You know what? No, we didn't talk because actually, like Yo D and I talked. She did a shutdown with her entire team.
Yeah.
And she's like, "How do you do this?" And I was like, "You go in your email, you put on an out of office reply. We are done.
We're done for a week.
Right?
You know what I mean?
I'm like, this is
if the world stops because we shut down for a week.
Yep.
That ain't our job to fix the world. You know what I mean? But we don't want to
we also can't pour
be
from an empty
abusive.
cup.
That's it. We don't want to abuse the folks that we're asking to do this work.
Correct.
Right? So we don't want to transfer the need from the problem we're trying to solve to the people working to solve the problem.
Yeah.
But we also have, you know, when we implemented that 1 week shutdown, we implemented what they also have, what I got from the automotive industry, and that's a 4-day quit. So you mess around and show up and don't show up in 4 days talking about you on sabbatical, we're going to assume you quit.
You know what?
that's what we're going to assume you quit.
We're going to step a conversation.
That knife cut both ways.
Right.
Y'all talking about policies and
It's going to be every
BLD
4 days. I got it. Working around. Come here 4 days. Come here for 2 days. 4 more days.
Go ahead. Play if you want, kid. Look, play.
I'm gonna figure this out.
Oh my goodness!
It's both ends. That's why it's both ends.
I'm gonna be chilling on the couch with you next week. Watch.
And Dwan gonna be like Chanel.
Watching the
Godfather of Harlem. So what's up, good brother?
Terrible.
Awesome.
No, this has been good. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. Got a lot of respect for you and the many hats that you wear. So this has been good. Thank you.
Appreciate you. The feeling is mutual. Right. We got it. I'm called Sabatin. Sabatin.
All right.
Sabatin.
All right.
We got to take care of ourselves so we can be around in the game longer.
No doubt.
This is just the beginning.
We're going to figure it out. We got a little bit more work to do. Then we're going to be figuring out how to
I like how he looked at you
send
when he
people on
said that.
sabbaticals.
Right.
Yep. But y'all have heard it from us, Dr. Chanel Hampton. Take care of yourself. And you know what you need. Stop ignoring it. Yeah. They say like Albert Einstein, even though I don't claim
claim to be like a white man whatsoever. It's a thing. It's like literally like
What'd they
geniuses
say? What'd they say?
that you don't remember information that holds no value for it. Like
Exactly what they
it's like
say.
I don't need it. Do I need it?
Did she just say we got a bunch of
I'm not saying
things
that. I'm just
committed
saying.
to memory
No, it's like I'm
that
global
are
with
that are
directions.
useless?
Yeah, you
Look,
useless.
no, it's just
She's a
in a real
genius.
I have
subtle way.
selective information. No, I'm like, what do I need this for? I enjoy it in the moment and then I forget it.